Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hey guys, and welcome to another favorites of 2024. Don't mind me, I just touched up my color last night, and so I have a few weird spots until they wear off, so I'm a little self-conscious about those. But I touched up my hair, so it's good for the holidays, and this is just what we got to deal with. We got to deal with it, okay? So today will be the last of my top 10 favorites that are like individually broken up. So there will still be, of course, the final video that probably won't go up till January, hopefully the first week of it. That will have my overall top 10 books of the year. I'm in the middle of rereading those. If you're new to this channel, I try to reread all of the books that I've given 6 stars to. The ones for sure that I need to, ones that I gave 6 stars to way back in the beginning of the year, ones that I may have forgot since I've read like 400 books since then. And so I'm busy rereading those. But what I did differently this year is I've done, I think like there'll be a total of 5 that were top 10s of a few of the subgenres. And then I also did audiobooks. So I have one for top 10 mafia, historical romance, fantasy, audiobooks, and then there'll be this one that's small town. Now, I didn't end up doing one of these for every single subgenre. These are just the ones that are like the biggest overarching ones that I have. And I thought that was fun. So for this one, I picked small town romance instead of just contemporary because I read a vast amount of small town. And again, when I have my top 10 list, there are going to be a few contemporary and small towns that are in there, and I'm trying not to overlap books to the best of my ability. So I tried to just put them in one category. A couple of these ones, I think they are all separate is what I went with. But yeah, I ended up picking 10. So I have a specific book in mind for these, but they're also a part of series for the most part, and you'll see when I go through them. So when I talk about these top 10, I may speak about a specific book, or I may kind of be referencing the series as well. You'll just see. So yeah, small town romance is very close to my heart. I love reading it. That envelope's usually a lot of like cowboy, as well as usually there's a lot of like single dad and things like that in them too. And I love all of those. So let's go through these. They're in no particular order. They're just in the order that like I wrote down all of the ones I read, and then I picked through the ones that I liked the most. So there's no like least to most on this one. So first up, I want to mention Just Between Us by Lena Hendricks. And right off the bat, this is one that I have enjoyed this whole series. And this was the 3rd one in the King series, which spins off of the Sullivan series, which spun off of her Redemption Ranch series. So Lena Hendricks, like a lot of these authors, all of her series like connect to each other. But this one I was very intrigued with because the Kings were the enemies, the rivals of the Sullivans. But at the end of the Sullivan series, there was a pairing between the oldest brother of the Sullivans and the sister of the Kings. And so, yeah, I've enjoyed all those books. But the most recent one that came out was Just Between Us. And this really is my favorite Lena Hendricks that I've read. This newest one is my favorite. And it's a scenario of like a black cat heroine, golden retriever hero who's a tattoo artist. He's also a sex worker in a way. He does a version of kind of like OnlyFans type thing where he shows off basically himself from the neck below, and he does sexy like kind of boyfriend videos, like voice videos where he's like talking to you and touching himself. And the videos he puts on the main page, of course, are technically safe for work, though I'd call them pretty spicy. And then you can be one of his like paid supporters and get a little bit extra stuff coming through as well. So he does this on the side, and he's made a good amount of money doing this. Now our heroine comes in, and she is actually a like lawyer working for the Kings. There's some of the family stuff going on the side of this, which I won't get into all of that in this because in general, as I've said in every one of these, I'm trying not to do like full deep dives into each book. With this one, you can check out my weekly wrap-ups for more details about the books. But she is working with the family to try to figure some things out. And she's in town to do this. And it turns out she is already a like fan of our hero. And she's able to pretty quickly suss this out because his tattoos are very distinctive. And so there's a time where she ends up getting a look at some of his when like the family, she meets the rest of the family that she's working for, and she's like, oh my God, this is him. And then she hears him talk and she's like, oh my God, that's his voice, the voice that I've like gotten off to and everything. And he doesn't know that this is the woman that he's actually been conversing with a little bit and has found her to be really fun. Until she says something in real life that he's like, oh my God, this is the black cat woman that I love so much. And so once he knows, he definitely is teasing her about it. And he ends up convincing her that they should kind of have a little fling. And they actually experiment with a little bit of dynamic sexual play where he's like, let me be in charge. Let me take control. Let me help you out. And this is one of those two where he's definitely... I mean, he's just this gregarious, larger-than-life guy, and when they do some of those scenes together, he really keeps it pretty tight to the scene. Like, once the scene is done, he goes back to being who he was, and I like seeing that sometimes when there's a big difference. Like, I feel like a lot of ones we read, if it's a dom hero, he's it all the way through, and that's all right. There are some people's personalities who are like that, but he's also able to kind of be whatever the heroine needs him to be. I mean, he definitely enjoys being dominant, but he also enjoys like giving her what she needs. And so he becomes that. So anyway, there's a lot more to this one too, why I like it the best, because as I said, it does get into a lot of the family stuff that we've been following the whole time. And there are some pretty big reveals and stuff that happen in this one. So I'm really looking forward to the next one, which is coming in January or February. Oh, it's January. Yep. Because I just made my January TBR. I'll be filming that and it's on there, which will be just like that. And that one's going to be a surprise baby or surprise kid. I'm not sure, but I'm really looking forward to that one. All right, then we have Alive and Wells by Bailey Hannah, which I'm so happy. This series ended up getting picked up and is being re-released. So there are new covers for this one. But I read this one for... a readathon. Yeah, I read this one for maybe the Romance Takeover readathon, I think. I don't know. But it had been on my TBR for a while. And it had been on my book rec form. And I love cowboys. And I also love women on the run, which is what this one had happening as well. And I enjoyed it so much. So we've really been waiting for book 3 because she got picked up between book 2 and 3 going out. And so now the publisher is going to be doing all of them. But this one is about our heroine, Cecily, who goes on the run because she has an abusive husband. And there's actually a woman who runs the ranch's like kitchen and that side of things who they've been conversing online. And so she invites her out there and she's like, I will get you a job. I will help you be safe. Just get away from him. And so she does. She gets away and she ends up on this ranch. Now, the owner of the ranch's name is Austin Wells, though, and he doesn't like this woman right away. He's like, why is she on my ranch? She's a city girl. And he doesn't know the down low. Okay. He doesn't know her past or why she's there. So he definitely acts like an ass in the beginning. Okay. Definitely steps over himself a few times because he doesn't know that she's from an abusive relationship and that she's on the run. But his lady who runs the kitchen and stuff is like, you said I could hire who I want and I hired this woman, so shut up and let me handle her. And he's like, fine. But slowly as he gets to know her, he falls for her. And once she tells him the whole ugly truth about it, he, of course, is going to be very protective. And he's like, if that guy comes to fuck with you, well, I got all these hills and all these places and nobody would ever find him. So it's that kind of energy. So I love this so much. I really, really did. Enough so that even though Seeing Red, which was book 2 in this, was not quite my thing. That heroine is the type of heroine I don't really care for, but I really love the hero in that one, and I'm really looking forward to the next one, which is Chasing Something, probably. Or no, yeah, Seeing Red was I don't know, but either way, I'm looking forward to the next one coming in 2025. Okay, we had to have a Brooke Montgomery show up in here, so I do have Stay With Me by her. Now, quite a few of the books in this series came out this year. I think there was 2 that came out last year, and then this year there was Stay With Me, Fall With Me, Only With Me, and then Sin With Me will be coming in February. So of the ones I read this year, which was Stay With Me, Fall With Me, Only With Me, this one was my favorite. And to be honest, it is, like, I really loved the first book. I really did. But this one I probably like the most in the series looking back now. I was kind of wowed by the first book. In fact, I gave the first book 6 stars last year is how much I liked it. But I've reflected on that book and it's just not quite to my taste anymore. Anyway, moving on. But I really liked Stay With Me. And I think overall the series is very good. One thing I would remind everyone too is that this is definitely a bit of a darker series than it may show itself. Now, Brooke gives a very good trigger warnings. It's not that she hides anything. It's just that I believe the vibe of the covers and the vibe of the marketing doesn't quite get across that there's some pretty heavy things that happen in some of these. Like they deal with, and not just this one now, I'm talking about the whole series. There's suicidal ideation talked about. There is abuse. There's neglect talked about. There is misuse of drugs and things like that. So it's not that they're a huge main theme, but a lot of the conflicts and a lot of the heavy stuff comes from these. But so this one is an accidental pregnancy that's not his baby type of thing. And in this one we have Magnolia and Trip, and she's been into him for a long time. This is her best friend's brother, and he has a lot of pain that he's carried since one of his friends actually died when they were young. And he's really carried that a lot of his life and doesn't believe that he deserves happiness because of that. It's one of those where you're like, boy, that don't make sense. But anyway, Magnolia's really been into him and he's kind of into her too. But, you know, for a while, she's had this really shitty boyfriend that they've been on and off with. And she actually ends up hooking up with her ex one last time and it gets her pregnant. So just as things are starting to happen with Trip, finally, she discovers she's pregnant. And she's like, I can't force this on you. And she's very stubborn about it. And also he's like, I'm never going to stop wanting you or wanting to be a part of your kid's life. And I want to be a dad to this kid. I want to be there for you. So, like, let me in. So this woman who wanted him so bad and who's, like, panted after him for all this time, now he's paying attention and ready to be there. And she's like, I don't want to ruin your life with this kid. So she can be a little bit frustrating about it. But watching him prove to her that he's going to be there and that he's the one who's going to support her, it's beautiful. So, yeah, I really enjoy this. And I think for a lot of people really like this small town series. But just remember, do check the triggers for some of these, especially, in my opinion, for Only With Me, which was the most recent one that came out. That one was pretty intense. And I cried a lot while I was reading that one. Okay, next up we have the Bourbon Boys by Victoria Wilder, and I am mentioning both of these ones. There was Bourbon and Secrets and Bourbon and Lies. Now I can't remember which order they were in. But either way, the most recent one is my favorite. I think this one is Bourbon and Secrets. Crap, I can't remember which order they were in. Either way, this pretty one, I'm putting it up there. This is my favorite one. I just read this one. This is a burlesque dancer and then a single dad. And they don't have a romantic history with each other. Actually, she used to live in town and 10 years ago, something went crazy and they had this interaction where he actually like chases her out of town. I don't want to spoil why. So she agrees, she leaves. He's is it 10 years or was it 7? I don't know. It was quite a few years ago. But now his kids are a lot bigger and his wife is actually dead now. So he's a single dad. The family bourbon company is the Bourbon Boys is where it is. There's 3 brothers who run it. And he now discovers that she's back in town all of a sudden. And she's back in town and dancing at this one club. She's doing a residency there. She's a pretty famous or well-known burlesque dancer in the city she normally lives in. Now when he sees her back in town, he's first really pissed. He's like, I told you never to come back. And she's like, you can't hold that against me anymore. Like, that's done. And what he doesn't know, of course, because he hasn't been keeping tabs on her, we know from her point of view that she is actually an undercover investigator. And she is not part of the FBI, but she's currently like kind of collabing with the FBI. She's like an independent detective. and she is being a burlesque dancer to actually insinuate herself into a situation with a man who's very attracted to her. And so she's in this town having to pretend to be into this guy to get information, as well as the man she's actually attracted to, who they've been enemies in the past, is now like seeing her all the time, and he's curious why she's back in town after he was like, don't ever come back, and blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot to unravel. There's stuff to do with her family. There's stuff to do with his family. And there's a mystery to solve as well. And I loved this couple. I loved their dynamic together. They were so sexy. They're, you know, it's first that thing going to be like, we're just hooking up for now because she's going to be leaving town again type of thing. There are Highland cows that his little girls want to adopt, and there's pets, and there's super sexy scenes having to do with bourbon, and a little bit of switching. There's a few times he's like on his knees for her that are pretty hot things done in here too. So it's just really well written. Victoria Wilder, as I said, both of these books were good. The first one in the series was actually about someone who's in witness protection. And I really loved that one too. So there was just great stuff. The series is amazing. Okay, then there is Chasing Sparks by Hannah Cohen. Now, I don't remember these ones super as well, but this is another one where there is like a Cherry Peak ranch. And I believe Chasing Sparks is the one where it's a billionaire who he is like a record producer, or he co-owns the company, and he's having a bit of a mental break. And so he gets kind of exiled by his father / like business partner to go back to Cherry Peak and stay there for a while and get his head straight. And so that's what he ends up doing. And he runs into this woman there. She runs actually a pole dancing studio. And she boards a horse at Cherry Peak. I believe that's what it is. And they end up falling for each other while he's working there. So that one was really good. I also read, so there's Chasing Sparks, and then there was the next one that I've read as well, which I also liked. That was a younger man, older woman one. That was really good. And then in January, there's actually Stealing Sunshine coming out. And that one is going to be a sapphic romance, an FF romance. And it's about the hero from the third book. One of his sisters is gay. And so I'm looking forward to that one. It actually looks really good. Okay, then there was She's a Wild One by Kristen Proby. And this is another one that, I mean, the whole series for sure. This is The Wilds of Montana, which I think I read the last book, or the first book in December of last year, or I'm not sure if they all came out this year. I don't know, but either way, I read a lot of them in 2024, at least books 2, 3, 4, and then this one was 5. So this is about the wilds of Montana. There's 5 siblings, 4 brothers and a sister, and this one specifically is about the sister, the youngest sister, of course. The sister's always the youngest one because that's just how it goes. And she actually owns a coffee shop cafe in town. And our hero is the oldest son of a rival family. Holden is his name. And him and her actually were in love 8 years ago. When she was 19, he was 28 or 27. And he couldn't be with her. His father was a completely evil man. He's atrocious, just awful. And yeah, it's very, very traumatic. I don't know another way to say that. It was awful. But now that father's dead, and he left everything, of course, to his oldest son, but only on the terms that he get married and stay married for 1 year, and then officially everything will be his, I guess. Whatever that means. And so who else is he going to ask but his old love, Millie? And Millie is not interested in this at all. He broke her heart many years ago. Of course, she doesn't know that he broke her heart because the father had threatened her life. She doesn't know that. But he goes ahead and kind of not blackmails her, but kind of guilts her into marrying him because he's like, do it for my sisters. I won't be able to give them what they deserve if I don't inherit everything. So she agrees to do it. But of course, she has all these rules, and he straight up is like, no, I'm going to use this year to prove to you that I never stopped loving you. And in fact, his entire body is covered in tattoos. His penis is pierced, and he did all of those things in remembrance of her. Whenever he'd really be missing her, he would get something done. He's like never been with anybody but her since then. Anyway, he was with people before. And he basically raised his younger sisters because his father was such an ass. So it's also he's not a single dad. He's the oldest brother, but he loves he calls them his girls. He has 3 younger sisters. So this was really good. The setup for the next series will of course be another family not far away. That is the Byrne brothers, I think, or the Blackwells or the Burns. I'm not sure, whatever. But the oldest sister of Holden is going to be what that one is about, with one of those brothers. So love it. All right. There is If You Give a Single Dad a Nanny. This is a part of the, shoot, I wrote it down. What series is this a part of? Aspen Grove? I think Aspen Grove. I love showing this picture. This is, of course, a single dad and his next door neighbor, Marlo. And she ends up getting hired as his nanny. Now, he really resisted that because he doesn't trust her responsibility-ness. She's actually an artist. She works from home in that regard. And he's just always seen her as flighty and irresponsible. But his daughter loves her. And so when he is in an emergency and needs a nanny, she ends up stepping up. And then his daughter loves her so much, and it works out that he agrees to let her continue being his nanny. And he's a real grump. It's not the slowest burn in the world, but he is very much resisting, not only because she's his neighbor, because she's his nanny, but there's just a crazy chemistry between them. And she's a bit flighty. She's a bit over the top. But Marlo is just so sweet that he can't hide it for long. The banter in this one's great. But yeah, this is a part of Aspen Grove. The other books out in this series so far were If You Give a Billionaire a Bride. And then there was also, what was the other one too? If You Give a Billionaire a Bride. If You Give a Grump a Holiday Wish List. And then there's another one coming that's, what was the other one? I can't remember their names. If You Give a Billionaire a Bride, If You Give a CEO a Chance is one that's coming. But I'm missing one, but whatever. Love that series. There is the Haven Brothers. This is Temptation Trails by Claire Kingsley. This one is book 3 in the Haven Brothers. And like a lot of these series that I've mentioned, there's a rival family called the Baileys. And now the Baileys already had a series. And at the end of that series, there is a couple who was the youngest sister of the Havens, married one of the brothers of the Baileys. And so those families are now connected forever. And they've actually become pretty good friends because of the family that they share. But anyway, this is a suspense series. It's actually very low on heat as well. Claire Kingsley has went a bit more closed door with her romance. This one now isn't completely closed door because this is actually an accidental pregnancy. And she does show us the event where said pregnancy ignites. And it was pretty sweet. I wasn't expecting it because she has went more closed door with this series. And I've spoken about before why that happened. I'm not going to go into it detail right now, but you can find out why Claire Kingsley has changed her writing a little bit. But I really enjoy this series. I love the audiobooks. I've been lucky enough to read arcs of these. I actually was so kindly sent a copy of this one with some cute, actually the stickers are over there, these cute stickers. But this is about a new baker in town. Her name is Harper, and she took over actually her aunt's bakery, I think. Her aunt is still around sometimes, but she took it over. And Garrett is a police officer and investigator, and he's actually investigating a cold case that new evidence has resurfaced, and they might discover that this cold case is actually a part of a serial killing, that they're getting serial killers getting pulled into their small town, which is no fun for anyone. And he has a teenage son, and in the beginning of this book, his son steals some baked goods from Harper's bakery. And when he gets home from work, he discovers that his son has done this, and he's so annoyed and ashamed, but he's like, what's going on with my son? I don't want to lose this connection with him, but like, I can't let him get away with shit because I've seen police officers do that with their own kids and it never ends well. So he forces his son to come with him back to the bakery and apologize to Harper and agree to come up with a deal. And so what Harper asks is, she's like, well, I can't resell these baked goods because you've had them in your backpack, but how about you come in and help me on a Saturday and you will earn off your debt to me that way. And so he agrees to do that. And one of the best parts of this book is actually the relationship between the son and Harper, because he ends up really liking helping her bake. And eventually he wants to come back even when he's not working off a debt to her anymore. And it was so cute. But yeah, there's a crazy connection between Garrett and Harper. And one other fun little tidbit is that in the beginning of the book, the day that he actually gets the lead on this cold case, he's supposed to have a date with Harper. He gets set up with her, and he's so tired of these like blind dates being set up by relatives that he doesn't feel too bad that he blows her off. And she believes that she has a bad luck streak, and so when she gets stood up, she's just like, whatever. But when he brings his son to the bakery, he discovers that this gorgeous woman who runs the bakery is the woman that he stood up, and he feels like such an asshole. So maybe she'll give him a second chance, which obviously she does, because as I said, this is also an accidental pregnancy that we find out pretty soon. But I really love this series. It's once you know like to expect closed door and that it's a romantic suspense, I think it's really good. And she does such a good job still building the romance, and really that's what is most important anyway. So I think it's a great book to grab the audiobook, and maybe while you're doing a sewing on something, that's what I do. I'm like sewing or crafting. I actually listened to this audiobook when I was building one of my I put it back over there, but when I was building one of my book nooks, I was listening to that, and that was really fun. Okay, just two more to mention. So I wanted to mention Chasing the Wild by Elliot Rose. This is part of Crimson Ridge. And this one is actually the ex-boyfriend's dad snowed in for the not for a whole winter, but for a good part of it, snowed in with him. And she is actually going to school to be a vet. And so when her ex-boyfriend has screwed her over, she goes to his dad's house to chew him out. And he actually is like in town, and they end up getting like snowed in there, and he gives her a job working with him like for the winter. And things are going to get real spicy real fast. And then book 2 in the series was Braving the Storm. And that one was the forbidden uncle and niece romance that I've talked a lot about. But Crimson Ridge is the said like small town. And then the last series that I want to mention, which I have been really enjoying. This is another romantic suspense series. And this year was the year that I wanted to really fall for Catherine Cowell's books. I'd only read one of hers before, so it's not that I tried a ton, but I had felt that she was overrated at the time. I don't know, but I also hate being left out of things. So many of my friends like read her books and get the arcs, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. So I signed up for an audio to begin with. I signed up for one, and I got it. And so I've listened to the first 3 books in this series now, I believe, and I'm really enjoying them. And the reason why I say like I changed my perspective about it is that previously I would get annoyed with the suspense element added in her books, and that's not really her fault, because she says that they're romantic suspense. She tells you that. I would just get annoyed because the third act always felt the same, that it was a third act kidnapping, and like that's always like literally. I know I said I only read one, but my friends who've read more said like they liked each book less and less because they were copying each other. Well, going into it now, whenever I read one of her books, I just know you're in for a little bit of suspense and probably a kidnapping. So with that lens on, I go into it and try to see how she makes it happen, right? So in my head, instead of being like, oh, she's doing the same things, I'm like, how is she going to use the same thing but different in this one? So not everyone maybe is willing to do those mental gymnastics, but I have, and I've enjoyed them because of it, because she still writes pretty romantic books. You just got to know someone's probably getting shot at or kidnapped at the end, you know? Just know that. And I particularly am liking this series because it is a found family. There's this family that I believe there's 2 or 3 kids. I think there's 2 kids in the family, and the rest have all been like adopted, either officially through foster care or just like welcomed into the family. And so we've been going through those like found family siblings, and I really like that. So yeah. So my favorite one in this series is probably Broken Harbor, and that was the most recent one. I've really liked them all. They've been really good books to listen to. And this one was a single mom who, she's not necessarily on the run, but she's avoiding her ex She has a little boy who is in hockey, and our hero is actually a hockey player, and he's home visiting for a time, and he's volunteering with, like, you know, the hockey program in town, and so her little boy is in that, and they kind of get off to a rough start, but her little boy really likes him, obviously, because he's a hockey player, and she runs a bakery in town that one of his sisters has, like, worked at or volunteered, or maybe sister-in-law, not sure, I can't remember who, but they end up falling for each other, and there's actually a couple different suspense elements to that one, and I don't want to ruin them, but one of them obviously is her ex, and I'll tell you this one started with the most, like, compelling suspense. They've all had really good prologues to, like, suck you into the suspense side of the story, and this one is actually, like, she's, in the beginning of it, she's already an ex of her ex, but he's gotten into some debt to basically, like, the mafia, and he sent... like, well, her ex didn't send them there, but, like, he can't pay. And so they send someone to her apartment to rough her up while her son is home. Luckily, he's sleeping, but she literally gets beat because he won't pay. And so that's when I say she's kind of on the run, because she separated herself, not only, like, separated from him, but is like, I'm not going to let him know where I am because people came after me for his debts, and, like, she doesn't have anything. So she's on the run in that aspect, is like, she's not officially trying to, like, hide from him, but it's also like, I don't want him to know where he is because of that. So anyway, it was a good one, and I'm looking forward to Delicate Sleep is next, or did I already read that one? I don't know. There's another one coming. I'm excited for that one too. So there we go. Those are what I would consider my top 10 small town romance, like, series, and then, like, my favorite book within each series, if that makes sense. But I did read a lot of different small town romance series. I really love those, so that's been fun. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching this. I hope you've enjoyed all these top 10 videos, and make sure you subscribe to the channel for updates when I have my top 10 of the year will be going up. I put up 3 to 4 videos a week, and I have for quite a while now, so there's a big backlist. If you're looking for recommendations for pretty much any type of story you can think of, if it's got romance in it, I have a list for it, so definitely check those out. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful holiday. I think this is going up on Christmas Eve, so have a wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year. Bye.